Good morning, everybody. This is John Ricks, Executive Director of the Nebraska Tourism Commission. I hope everybody's on. I know we have over 100 people signed up this morning. And I hope everyone's staying safe and staying home. We're pretty confident that when this whole thing passes, that tourism will basically explode and help lead the country out of some fairly significant problems that we're experiencing right now. But what we're about today is we wanted to put together a webinar that focused at the grassroots level for CVBs, tourism businesses, and communities throughout the state, and provide you some direction and show you what other CVBs and destinations across the country are doing right now in what's truly an unprecedented time. So we got together, got together with Miles Partnership and Flugy Consulting, and they've worked with Destinations International on what you'll see today. Laura Libby, who I'll introduce in a couple of minutes, is with Miles, and Dave Flugy's with Flugy Consulting. Yes, they do work with us at the state level, but I want to emphasize that they're not going to be talking today about what we're doing at Nebraska Tourism. They're going to be talking about how you should approach, or how you can approach things, and the challenges you're facing at the local level. And those two things are entirely different. One housekeeping item before I throw it over to Laura is that we just sent out an email to the industry, to our NEB Tour list, if you will, maybe 10 minutes ago, inviting people to a weekly call that NETA, Nebraska Tourism Association, is having every Monday at 4 p.m. It's being called the Coming Together Call. There have been a few of them so far, and they're now inviting the entire industry to attend. So if you did not get that email within the last 10 or 15 minutes with the call-in information for the 4 o'clock call today, simply email Erin Lenz, which is Erin.Lenz, L-E-N-Z, at nebraska.gov, and she'll forward that information to you, because they've been great conversations, and that'll take place at 4 o'clock today. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Laura Libby from Miles. Take it away, Laura.
Thanks, John. I wanted to say that today will be, as it's mentioned in the chat, we'll be recording this webinar for you, and we'll send it out later along with the slide deck. And also during the webinar, if you want to use the questions box to submit any questions, we have time at the end where we can go and go over questions. Dave and I can, along with Erin and John. So I will just get started. We've been working at Miles Partnership. We are a tourism marketing, full service marketing company, and we do have the honor of working with the state of Nebraska, but we work exclusively in travel and tourism. So we've been really looking at sort of what do we do moving forward. This is, as John mentioned, an unprecedented time in travel and tourism marketing. So we've been talking with a lot of our clients and looking around the industry to see sort of how do we navigate these times. So one of the things, sort of a starting point we can all identify with, is creating a plan. Starting with that, though, we know everyone's situation is unique. The level of involvement and leadership for every level is very different. Some places have been mandated to stop marketing entirely, while others are being the community lead in aggregating a lot of information. So we recognize that, and as we're going through this, want to acknowledge that things are different everywhere, but we're all facing this same challenge together. Another element of putting this plan together is really understanding who your stakeholders are and working to educate them and alongside them. So stakeholders can be your industry partners, they can be your customers, they can be your employees. There's a lot of different stakeholder groups. So knowing who they are and having a plan on how to communicate with each one, I think, is really important in there. The next part of that plan is meeting your consumers where they are now. That refers not just to the channels and the content sources, so not just social media or web-based or in magazines or whatever you're looking at from a channels perspective, but also thinking about where they are from an emotional and mental state. And this is something I think we can all identify with personally, how this evolves every day and changes. So thinking about where are people and what are they thinking about, and trying to sort of meet there and be a comfort to them as a destination, because we know that destinations are places of inspiration and our attractions are places of inspiration and education. So thinking about how we can utilize that very strong connection to help people in this time is important. The last thing is to really think about moving this from a thought of marketing and advertising to more of a time of thinking about messaging and education and looking at it that way, because that's really more the framework that we want to think about this in. I don't know why I don't understand how to move forward. So in putting our plan together, we think about it sort of in 3 phases, because we know that things are changing. So we need to be able to be agile and react in real time to how this is shifting. So we want to think about it sort of in a time right now of support. We're trying to just adjust, understand, look around our ever-changing landscape and think about what are those ways that we can work in that landscape and infrastructure. I think looking forward, we start to think about a recovery. And then I know a lot of groups are thinking about a recovery plan or starting to think about recovery planning. And this is when we think about travel patterns starting to return, some of the areas that are a bit chaotic now start to settle down, and then how do we think about sort of growing and continuing on, and then finally what is that sort of advance, kind of where we were, but it'll look very different at that time. As we think about putting our plan together, we also want to look at it from a number of different categories, and that's really looking at this from a monitoring standpoint. And there's so much to monitor right now, and I know I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but there's a lot of tourism-related items to monitor. There's a lot of local policies and restrictions. There's constant announcements going on, and so really having that be one of the filters in which you're looking at this is important, because again, that goes back to things change regularly and are different in every place. So that monitoring is an element of how we know when we're moving and what's happening with it. Then measuring. It's important to look and establish this new baseline and understanding what's happening. So some of that is aggregating existing information. Some of it's looking at what you know about your own destination and how that's tracked to begin with, and then looking at things that are impacted by our current situation with COVID. So those measurements we'll talk a little bit more about, but that's one of the lenses that we want to really look at as we're putting this together. We also want to think about our messaging, and Dave will talk a little more specifics about some of this as well, but we need to put a communication plan and strategy together. And again, talking about our different stakeholders and knowing the different points that we're monitoring against, we know that that makes a very wide range of audience members that we're talking to. And so what you're talking about and supporting from your industry and stakeholders and local partners and even your local residents might be very different than what you want to tell travelers, because the immediacy of that information is going to be different. And then that sort of goes hand in glove with the idea of managing. How do we manage what we're telling people and think about this from a place of where things are and where we're headed, and what are those content elements that make the most sense at each stage of this. And then finally thinking about how do we look at what we're doing from a communication standpoint and messaging point, and think about those traditional marketing channels and how those make sense to us as we move forward through this. So looking at that supporting phase and creating our plan, again, as I was saying, we're looking at this in different sort of channels. So as we're looking at monitoring, a lot of that is going to be looking into those research studies. And there's a lot of research out there that's available for free right now that ranges from what Longwoods is putting together in an index and what Destination Analyst is putting together, to even some local where you can have booking data and different elements that you can look at from a monitoring standpoint. But I wouldn't ignore the things that you know you're tracking as well, what the CDC is recommending, what your state is recommending, even what your local community is putting out in terms of restrictions and recommendations. So that monitoring is essential to this, because it really does lay the foundation for how you're going to plan and to communicate with everybody else. So again, thinking about the measurements, we're right now really looking at the baseline. Ideally, we're at a place where we can see where our web traffic is, where our engagements are from a social perspective, where our bookings are or are not right now, and it's really where do we go from here. So measuring that and looking at some of the national indicators is a really ideally helpful place to be so that you know how to evolve and advance your messaging as you're moving forward. And again, as we look at messaging right now, a lot of it is aggregating how we support local businesses, whether it's your restaurants, local shops. How are we supporting our local businesses right now? Aggregating that to share with our residents and with our key local stakeholders, but then also thinking about how we're thinking towards our future travelers and those short-term travelers that are coming, that as soon as we can go, they're going to be going. So we want to think about that as well. And then finally, how are we managing and marketing the overall efforts and thinking about those calls to action, thinking about how we're having conversations in that. So these are a few things to think about as you're looking through this and thinking about how you're putting your plan together through these filters. So again, as I said, the traveler status obviously is not travel right now. It's stay at home, and that's unprecedented, as John said at the beginning. So a lot of the areas that we're looking at right now to see what that recommendation is, we are all looking at. We see it on the news. We see these things personally from our school districts. We understand this very, very much at the sort of core of our everyday. But I think having a place where we can aggregate and keep track of it is important as well. But then how do we look at some of the things we measure? One of the things that I think is really important and something we talk a lot about is that we need to look at our owned channels. So that's your website, your social media, the things, your email list, the things that the tools that you rely on and that are audiences that have raised their hand to be in connection with you. And so really looking and analyzing what is the sentiment, what are the things people are doing, how are they reacting to your social posts, how are they engaging with your email, what are the traffic terms that are bringing them to your website. And then on a broader level, look at those sort of continuously aggregated industry studies that are out there. Every week or so, we have been collecting a few data points that give some of that trend data. I think it's been interesting to see some of the social sentiment that has happened over the last 4 weeks and how that has ebbed and flowed throughout this. So we have a section of our website, but you can see it on a lot of different websites as well around the industry that really brings together some of these different points. So looking at whether it's foot traffic or a sentiment study about travel, I think understanding where the visitors' heads are as well as where they are moving around, I think will be a nice point to understand when there is a turning point and we start to look at travel returning to some level of not normalcy, but whatever that new normal and new travel looks like. So understanding your owned channels is really important. I think having either a simple survey in your email as you're sending out, or adding a way for people to sign up on email on your website. Right now, we know that if someone finds your site, they're looking for information about you, and there is no safer place to be putting your information than in your own channels right now. The people that are looking for that are either in a dreaming phase or they're looking, what can they do now to take an action? So collecting that data now and understanding who wants your guides, who wants your emails, that is, I think, a really valuable short-term visitor that will be essential as we start to turn this around. So looking at your web traffic is going to look pretty scary right now, but there's still people coming, and we know that those people mean to be there. So what are we telling them is sort of the next part of that conversation. Again, as I mentioned, there are broader reporting tools available. Many research companies and media companies have free data right now that's available for everyone to look at, and I can share a lot of that with you in the resources when we send this out. But looking at all of this shared research is there really to help everyone understand and navigate this and to know as you're making that plan when to move from one phase to the next. And so you can start to track that because you don't want to wait until everything is open and moving again to start your conversation with your consumers. These are people who are your fans that you want to keep talking with. Another idea that you can look at right now is to really look at within your social channels, either Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, how are people reacting to what you're sharing? And then also it gives you a chance to sort of A/B test. Try a couple of different calls to action or a couple of different imageries choices and video choices to see how people are reacting to some of the same information. It'll help you know how people are shifting their engagement and their emotion around what you are sharing and where you are really resonating with them as we're sort of evolving our communication strategy. Again, as you look at your keywords, and these can be paid or organic search terms that are leading people to your site, it's really important to look at that and see how that evolves over time. When we worked with Puerto Rico after the earthquake, you can see how the evolution of what people were looking for sort of in the prior time. You can see what people were looking for before the earthquake and how it changed to what happened after the earthquake. And then we've seen it again shift back to what it looked like before. And so really looking at what are those keywords that are bringing people to your website. And I think now, if you are putting paid dollars behind your keyword searches within your website, it's essential now to understand that they are getting to content that really, really resonates with them, because people are searching for you, they are clicking on it and coming to your site. And so it's really a great opportunity, because no one knows your site, but no one knows your destination or attraction better than you. And so you will still remain the authority on that during these times. So as people are dreaming or thinking or planning for future travel, you want to make sure you're sharing the best and most relevant information on your website right now. And then finally, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, think about shifting your messaging strategy now and your calls to action. So maybe it's not a book now like it had been in the past, but maybe it's a dream now, explore now, visit our site, something that's a little bit softer and doesn't have as strong an action call right now, since there's not a lot people can do right now, but then they still are obviously seeing and engaging with it. So test out some of those strategies and think about if you can build out itineraries or different things that give people a chance to see your destination and either your attraction or your restaurant or your hotel in a lot of different facets right now. I think obviously right now we want to come to our audiences from a place of empathy. We're all in this together, and we understand sort of the stress and anxiety of of being in these situations. But we know that we can also use our channels to support and promote our local businesses and each other, and really putting timely information out. It's really important that now more than ever we have the right information for travelers and for our local residents. So as residents are finding your site, they want to know, are you open? Can they buy annual passes to support you? Are there things that they can do to support the business now during this time? And then I think you want to make sure you're thinking of your future travelers, which is the audience that you've been building for years. You want to keep them engaged and be true to who you are in terms of your brand. Whatever your personality is, whatever your value proposition is, you want to be true to that now, even if it's shifted a little bit. And it takes a little creativity. And Dave will talk some about that as well. One of the things that you can do right now as a local business and to support your local businesses is to really aggregate what are those details. What restaurants are available for curbside pickup or have delivery? How can you support your local businesses through restaurants and your attractions, your museums, all of the local businesses? How do you support them now? And then how do we share when things are closed and when they are open? One of the things that is really important is not just your own channels in this sense, but then also as people are looking to other resources that are available in this sense. So Google is where many people go. I'm sure many of us all go to Google first. And so that is a place where with Google My Business, if you can own that business, it's your listing for your business. And then you can manage that through Google Posts and through the Google My Business interface. And you can make sure, and that is free to you. And it's something that you can make sure reflects the open times, the close times, any adjustments to your information. And Google Posts is a great way to share either weekly specials or different information that way. And I can share more information on that as well. But that, along with your OTAs like TripAdvisor, where you have free listings, and you make sure that those are up to date, because again, you want to meet travelers and consumers where they are. And so these these channels are places we know people are going. They go to Google, they go to TripAdvisor, they go to your website, they go to the state's websites. We want to make sure we're keeping all of those business listings up to date and current so that you can help the local businesses and the residents and then future the travelers in that sense. Another way to help support and promote your local business is to really look at what are our virtual and live streaming options that people can engage with. As we're looking for breaks from the news and having a pleasant break in our social feed or within YouTube, how do we share that content with live streaming concerts, or what are those photography experiences that really show the depth and richness of museums or different collections, and how do we share those? I think many of the same ways we had before, through our email, through our social channels, on the websites, virtual event calendars. It isn't the same as traveling to the destination, but it certainly has been an enjoyable side to see the creativity that different places have come up with this. There are different ways that within that too, you can have people through your live streaming concerts, either Venmo or other tools where the musicians can have like a cover charge, or different ways that you can engage people so they can support the businesses as well while engaging and enjoying what's being streamed or provided. You also want to keep in mind that you have a larger audience of travelers that engage with. So working with Puerto Rico on this, you want to have an audience engagement that sort of shows that trust in a way that people can value what you're doing, and you have those shared values together. In this example, they're doing these coffee care packages. So they're sending from Puerto Rico to other places, coffee from Puerto Rico. And in that, you are still staying very true to the local products, you're staying true to your local brands, and then you're also helping businesses in that same sense. So that's something, those packages can go far and wide. So it's a broader way to stay engaged and have visitors to engage with you. Also, those content strategies, as I was mentioning before, you want to think about what calendar you need. So on a weekly basis, how are you sharing? Are you sharing sunrises? Are you sharing virtual museum tours? Sort of create that calendar and approach so that you can stick to it and you can plan, and then start looking at who can do this from home in different ways. Do you have a museum curator that can tell a story? Because human interest stories are really powerful right now, and so can they tell that story from home in a different way than you can show it just at your museum? You know, can you look at creating itineraries that right now maybe you show via video, but then it become an itinerary people can act on when the traveling time comes again? Also looking at what are your self-guided tours that already exist, and how do you take those and turn them into something that can be shared socially or through email again, or on your website and via YouTube until the time comes to go. But you can keep people sort of in that dreaming phase and keep your businesses in that top of mind, because it's an awareness that will pay off in the future as we're getting ready, as John said, to travel again. And then looking now at how we manage this. So I think it's important to think about each of our stakeholder groups and how we talk with them. Thinking about what do residents, how do you support your local residents? How do you support the businesses right around you? And then thinking about broader industry forums like what we're doing now and what's happening later today. Those ideas that you can hear what's happening, you can talk with one another. Everyone's in this together, but like I said, we're seeing things from slightly different perspectives. Then I think where you can start to get a local sentiment survey so you can understand how are they engaging with your businesses, how are they engaging with you as a business owner, and then respond in kind, and that can inform your communications plan and strategy, as well as you know what the locals are looking for, since they are primarily our audience right now. And then we know as this is happening, you need to take it slow, and that perhaps you put some money behind paid search or behind social, but then you need to dial that back. So we know that these things need to be very agile so that they can ebb and flow with budgets and with the times. But you want to start really with your own channels. I think that's the place that's safest. And then identify benchmarks, so you know when to move to your next phase. So again, looking at those traffic trends, if you see your web traffic, either the time on the site is increasing, the number of people coming, your search volume, a few different web traffic trends that you can see in Google Analytics, and you'll understand, like, this is working, this is resonating, let's put a little bit more behind this. And then those broader travel sentiment research studies that are out there will help as well to understand when foot traffic starts to return, local traffic starts to move around, and then we'll start to see future bookings in those times. Is it August? Is it September? When is that we start to see those bookings starting again? Is it July? Is it June? We don't know. But those sentiments and those benchmarks will start to show us that. And then I think we need to look at when media consumption expands beyond sort of national news, local news, and then social media. National news, local news, social media. And when you do that, we know people are watching about 60% more TV than they were a year ago, but that's connected TV. That's not just cable TV. And so does it make sense to put money behind some of those channels as well? It's something to watch, and it's not going to be the same for everyone, but it is something to sort of benchmark against to make a determination. Then you want to make sure that you have a plan in place to support your local community as they prepare to reopen, as you get ready to sort of re-engage and have people coming into the businesses themselves. Is it special offers? Is it through emails? Is it through some different sort of preparatory events? And I would say with special offers that it doesn't necessarily have to be a traditional like buy one, get one free type offer. Think about ways that you can add value that don't undervalue what your service set is that you're offering. So if it's typically a 7-day stay, maybe you change it to a 3-day stay. Or if it's, that you can add in a water bottle with whatever you're doing. Like think about ways to make a special offer that's not necessarily just a discount in this, because that is hard to come back from as well. We know from several studies that it takes a long time to recover from discounts right out of the gate. But there'll be a balance of it, and that will be something that's unique in each place. Again, think about those calls to action. We're talking about dreaming or exploring, to thinking about your welcome, plan to come, that kind of call to action in your future look. Again, a couple of examples we were working with Puerto Rico on this, the idea that you could have this virtual experience with a salsa lesson. They had a cocktail class and a cooking class over the course of a weekend, so that there were sort of 3 check-in points with live experiences, and it got great earned media. PR was really strong for this one, so it didn't necessarily require a lot of monetary investment from an advertising standpoint, but something that really was unique and captured the essence of the destination and brought it to people's homes in a really exciting way. So just a few takeaways from this section before I turn it over to Dave to talk through some examples and some tactics within some other channels. You want to look at whatever you're working on and whoever your stakeholders are. You want to create value, and you want that to be, if you think of the coffee from Puerto Rico, it has an actual value and it's symbolic of the businesses being open. You want to sort of balance this with your partners and with each other, and look at ways you can partner with other businesses as you're putting these ideas together. And then again, think about messaging and communications rather than marketing. Marketing seems sort of like something we might turn back on, and I don't think there'll be a turn on necessarily. It will be more of an incremental increase to what you're doing from a messaging standpoint. There's a lot of places you can do that free within your own channels. It doesn't require a paid media spend, but as you advance and incrementally add paid media behind it, it really can feel natural and be at the right time in the right way. Finally, I would really say that you want to use your own data, but lean into the stories that are unique to your business, to your community. You want to have those be uniquely yours. This is a chance to really sort of showcase all of the things that we love about our destinations and about our businesses. And then think about how you're doing that against the movement of people as travel returns down the road. So hopefully this has helped, and I look forward to answering any questions that may come in, but I'm going to turn this over to Dave to talk about more specifics within messaging within social media.
All right, thank you. I'm Dave Flugie with Flugie Consulting. Some of you have probably worked with me on the Social Media Blitz program. I'm going to talk to you just kind of briefly about some tips about what you can do, some examples of who's done it that ranges from smaller attractions to larger DMOs. And then what you can do on your own. And then, as Laura said, if you have questions, please just type those into the chat or the question section, and Aaron's going to compile those and then have those at the end for us. First and foremost, regardless of whether this is a crisis or not, this is just a good social 101, whatever comes before 101 is be honest. I mean, as you heard, we're all in this together. We're in the same boat. We've all been on probably phone calls with kids in the background, dogs barking. I mean, life's a little chaotic for everyone. So just remember that right now, whoever you're talking to, regardless of where they are, they're in the same boat as you. So we need to stop on social, take a step back, and think about what it is we can be providing to people and the messaging we can be giving them that may help them through their daily lives. That could be a tip. That could be a distraction, a welcome distraction at this point. You need to also stop and think about how your messages could be taken. I've had multiple partners around the country who have reached out and they say, what do you think of this? And they might come up with a funny video or something like that. Stop. Use your critical eye, hypercritical. I mean, really think through this from every angle. How could somebody take this? Jokes are hard. Even if they come from the best of intentions, jokes can be hard. And you obviously don't want to offend anyone, but you don't want to be the next case study in what not to do. So stop and use a critical eye at this. When you show photos, when you show videos, remember, people might not have the sound on. So if you're explaining something, think about how it's going to be taken if the sound's never on. Is there social distancing? That's the kind of thing we have to think about now. If you want to show a popular attraction and there's a bunch of people in the photo, even though that was taken last year, people on social have a knee-jerk reaction, especially right now with tensions being as high as they are. You need to take a step back and really, again, use that critical eye. Are you showing proper social distancing? Are you, even if that's voices in the background, if you can hear a crowd, stop and think about that. I mean, that's anymore, every photo, every video I'm using is pretty much edited. I mean, if there's somebody talking in the background or it shows a person or a car go by, I try and be conscious of that a lot of people are staying at home and they're frightened, and we need to make sure we pay attention to that. Politics, regardless of crisis or not, stay away from those. It's just not the time. In travel, I think we're in a much better position because we are an escape. That's what people tune into us for. That's why they come and visit us, is to get away from their daily lives. And so now we're positioned to talk about what it is they like. Here's a distraction from what you're doing right now, but we're going to have to provide it digitally. Be a happy distraction. I'll go through some of those, some fun ones. But you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is going to be a welcome distraction from people. Everyone knows you're in this together. We've probably seen that from all of the brands that we follow. We've probably gotten the emails from the shoe company that we bought a pair of shoes from 4 years ago that lets us know what their thoughts are on coronavirus and that they're in this together with us. Try and be a little bit different. Try and be what it is people want. Try and be the distraction they're looking for. All right, Laura, if you can go ahead and switch to the next one. I'm going to go through some examples. So who's doing it right? And I'm going to go through a handful of these because I think they're great thought starters, and I tried to get a mix for everyone to really get an idea of what you can do. This is the Dallas Zoo. So these are almost little classes where they talk about the different animals, and it's a zookeeper that kind of walks everybody through it, has the animal. The production value, especially right now, does not have to be that high. In social in general, people oftentimes overthink the production value. We're walking around with a phone in our pocket that more than likely is going to do the job. Recognize that, and just shooting something is better than shooting nothing. As long as you can hear the person talking, rough video can be forgiven. Audio, make sure they can at least hear you or they're going to tune out. But these are it's a series of walking people through the zoo. And again, the idea with all of these is you want to keep people's attention. You want to be this distraction so that when this is over, and again, it will be over. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say it's going to be over. And when this is, you want them to go, you know what? Thank you for helping me through the dark times. I'm going to come and visit you now. I want to see that lion. I want to see those penguins. I want to see that zookeeper that I thought was hilarious on that video, and I want to meet that person and come and see it. Okay, if we can go to the next one. Okay, so this is a museum that had a really fun contest for their fans to recreate works of art. And so it was a way for them to promote the works of art that's located in the museum, and then fans who are just stuck at home trying to recreate that in their kitchen. Another great example of this one would be Big Agnes. Big Agnes makes outdoor equipment. They make tents. And so Big Agnes had camp from home was the hashtag they used. And it's really funny. And they had fans just, hey, you can't go out camping, so why don't you show us your camp from home activities? And people still are setting up tents in their living rooms, creating the tent, like setting the tent up with a TV background showing the mountains. There's a really cute picture of a dad and his son fishing in a little blue pool in the living room. They understand this is what everyone again is in this same boat together. So what can we do that everyone can relate to? And so it's a way for them to promote their products, promote their brand, but do it not in a direct sales pitch, but in a fun, lighthearted way, which really has forced a lot of brands to embrace what most of us have been doing on social anyway, and that is giving fans what it is they want. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Netherlands. Everyone is familiar with the tulips in Netherlands, and they started by just saying, you know what, we know that you're sad you can't get here and see the tulips. I mean, this is huge for them, and so they wanted to bring the tulips to everyone else, and so their campaign is just kind of exploring the tulip field and showing everybody and giving them the Netherlands until you can come there and see them yourself. As you're going through this, think about what it is, whether you're a destination, whether it is you're an attraction, what it is you have to offer that people want to come and see, and then think of a way. It can be direct, it can be lighthearted, but a way you can bring that to people. We'll go to the next one. This is one that I worked on, and I hate doing a shameless plug. That's not the idea here. It is that this approach was very different than what a lot of people were doing out there, and that is as soon as this really became mainstream and it was making people nervous, and the last, the ski resorts were ordered to close, it was just, we're not, we can try and wade through this and find the perfect way of getting the message out. But for now, we just want everybody to relax and be calm. And so they're just simple videos where you sit back, you relax, and you transport to a destination for a moment. That can be done with any destination. And the reason this works is because it is honest, it's forward, there's no sales pitch, there's no when we're ready, you're ready. I mean, we've heard that, and we know, as a consumer, we know, of course, when I want to visit, you're ready for me. So let's kind of move past that, and let's give people exactly what it is they want. And what they want is a distraction. And this is, for Colorado, that's the best distraction we have. For Holland, of course, that's the flowers. It's finding these little pieces that's going to be your distraction. And then the last example, which I'm sure is killing Laura not being able to talk about herself, is the National Cowboy Museum. If you haven't seen this, it is incredible. I think it's one of my favorite things to come out of this crisis, because we've all met Tim, the security guard at the National Cowboy Museum. And what the National Cowboy Museum did was turn over their social media to Tim. And Tim has really brought his personality out, which is a great example for you guys to use to show your own personality. Tim doesn't know what he's doing. That's why when you look at this example, at the end it says, thanks, comma, Tim sent. Tim does a lot of things, like messages will go out that just say retweet. The example you see up above, hashtag symbol, hashtag the cowboy. I mean, it's him trying to figure out social while giving you an honest walkthrough of the museum. It's him telling stories about when Sam Elliott came in to the museum. It's him walking over to different displays and telling you the story behind that. And while it's fun, while it's jokey, while everyone wants to tune in and see what Tim says next, what's cool is when this ends, people are going to want to go see these displays. You know, they've heard these stories, they've seen photos of these, but they haven't been there. And what goes even further on this one versus a lot of others is people are going to want to go and see Tim. They're going to want to get their picture with Tim. And so if you have your own Tim, if you have something you can do where when people get out, they're going to want to run and experience this, that's what you should be thinking about. Okay, so the last slide. These are kind of some things you can do on your own. As Laura mentioned along the way, don't go dark. This is going to end. If you freak out and you stop doing anything, then you stop the train. And then when this is over, you have to get the train going in the middle of a traffic jam. And that's kind of a tough thing to do. So if you can, keep it going. Find the messages that make sense. You might have to tone those down, bring frequency down a little bit and not do as many. But you still need to make sure you're talking to people, because when this is over, you want them to think of you. You want to be that spot that when they can go outside, they rush to your destination, they rush to your diner, they rush to your museum. So what can we do? Well, there's tips for fans, and I've talked about these pre-crisis, and they're even more applicable right now. If you have a restaurant, of course you're doing the local delivery, but can you have a chef set up a camera and just show people how to cook the perfect egg? This is something that they're going to be doing at home. There's a lot of parents, again, remember, a lot of people are stuck home with their children, and it sounds kind of a little crass to say it that way, but they're home with their children. They're not used to this because we're used to working in an office, and now we have these two parts of our lives smashed together into one. So how can you cook them, quick little lunches? How can you do, here's a bunch of leftovers you can use, understanding that people might not run out to the grocery store all the time. So how can you tell them a story to help them with their daily lives? If you're a museum, can you pull a Tim? Can you do a history lesson live? Can you set these things up on an event and then have people tune in for the live broadcast of the history lesson about, the history of the plains or the gateway, the gateway to the West? Can you walk people through something like that and tell them about a piece of history? Because right now these kids are at home and parents still want them to learn. They've suddenly been given the task of teaching their children. Can you help them with that? Can you give them a lesson on zoology or biology? If you have a museum, can you have somebody give them an art project? I wouldn't know how to begin teaching my kid to do macaroni crafts or something like that. Is that something you can help a parent with? Where you say, tune in. We're going to give your kids a fun little art project. This is what you need ahead of time. We'll sit down. We'll make this together. If you're performing arts, can you teach kids music? Can you teach them dance things? What can you do to entertain these children, make life on mom and dad a little easier, make life for the children stuck at home a little more fun, so that at the other end of this, they think of you? Views and sounds your travelers may be craving. I mean, this is pretty easy. The cranes are landing. Sunset on Carhenge, waterfalls near Valentine. What are these moments that you have that you can share? I mean, this is the Honestly campaign. Bring it out right now and show them. You're stuck in your house right now? Look at this. Now that we have your attention, take a look at this. This looks pretty appealing right now. The cranes are such a majestic thing. Show it to people because they can transport even for 1 minute to your destination. For the locals, private groups for residents, this could be, you know, because of course you might be talking to out of state or even within state, but not your locals on your main social channels. If you have a lot of messaging just for residents and you don't want to intermingle those, start a private group where all of your locals can join. Your restaurants can post about maybe the new menu changes. Businesses can post about delivery. Maybe you have your brewery doing deliveries. Things like that might not be for your traveler, that you just start a private group for everyone. Again, use events. This can be tuning in for lessons. This can be tuning in for maybe the perfect sunset that you're just going to live stream and you want everyone to know about it. As you think of this, I want the local businesses to think about what they can do, how that can ladder up and be given to your towns, your local destination marketing groups. And then, of course, from that, when we get a bunch of those can be sent to the state for consideration and being shared out so that they have content to share throughout all of this. And this is really going to help. The more people that get involved with this, the more it helps Nebraska be positioned to come out the other side of this and have everyone's attention and have them want to come to Nebraska as soon as they can go outside and start traveling again. And again, if you have questions, send these through the chat. But I think we're at that point.
Erin, are you there for questions?
Yep. Okay. Like they said, if you have any questions, you can submit them in the question box, and we can read over those. But I do have a couple. The first one, very easy. Just this person just wants to send the link to other coworkers to listen later, and she said, "Where will this be available at?"
We can make it available in a chat form. We can make it a link on the website, or we can do it by email, whatever works best for you guys, Erin.
Awesome. I know we'll be sending it out to our industry email list. And like John mentioned at the beginning, if you are not in our Nebraska Tourism email industry list, just email me at erin.lenz@nebraska.gov and I can add you to that as well. Another question, probably more for Luigi. What's the best social media platform to be connecting with our travelers right now? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, it's a good question. And regardless of crisis, my answer would be the same. And that is, where are your customers? Where are your travelers? If, you know, this is stuff that you should have been paying attention to ahead of time. If you go now, you can still look at your analytics and see where the higher response is. And then also, if you're trying to proactively connect with people, what kind of connection do you want? Do you want to be just inspirational and awareness? Because if that's photos and videos, that works across multiple. If it's going to be something that's a little more in depth, then you might want to go to something like Facebook, where you have the option of using links, of using more of that forum style question and answers. People can do that. They can engage with their own photos. It really depends on the type of engagement you're looking for. And then of course, where people are.
Awesome. Okay, another one. How long is too long for a video? So in the past, you know, lots of people have heard that you should keep videos short because the attention spans are short. But have you noticed that that's changing now with people stuck at home?
Okay, so yes, I've noticed people watching a little more video, but my answers haven't changed a lot from what they would have been pre-coronavirus. If that video is compelling for that long, go for it. If it's something where you're showing the cranes landing, if people want to watch it for a minute, which a lot will, they want to watch it for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, let them. Just make sure that the quality is still good throughout that entire 5 minutes. If it's not, trim it short. But you don't have to keep it to 7 seconds. I'll tell you, if you're trying to, like, if you want to follow along and create these moments, these Nebraska moments where people can transport to your area, under 15 is really hard. I've looked through a lot of these videos, and at 15 seconds, you just start to relax, you just start to feel that moment, and it's gone. And I'll tell you, in doing these on our own, the one thing that consistently rings through on those types of videos is the thank you. Thank you, we need this distraction. And if that's what people are saying to you in regards to realistically is an ad, then it's really striking the right nerve with people. It's getting them excited to transport to your business. And so if that moment can warrant a minute, go for it. If you're doing a Q&A style thing, if you're trying to do a lesson, keep those short, but really keep it tight. So don't have a lot of downtime. If you're going to go in front of it and talk, have a script, plan it out, what you want to say and what you want to do, and then it will come off a lot cleaner and it will flow a lot better, and you'll be able to keep their attention a lot longer.
I'd just add two quick things to what you're saying, Dave. I think when you're talking about which channel is best, now is also a really interesting time to test it and see. You can test the same content on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram and just see where it's best engaged with, which might help you know which, if you're doing lessons, it's better in one than another. And so it's not a bad time to test it right now, but I think how frequently you do it, I think it's more about the timing. So if you're going to try to go about the mid-afternoon every day or every other day, like it's about that consistency more than I think it is the frequency of that as well. And then if you're going to try for something a little longer than normal, it's never a bad thing. And we've done this in a few places where we've said best 3 minutes of your day or something, so that people know right from the beginning what they're getting. They know it's more than 30 seconds or more than 15. So just like right in your description, give that sort of tip.
Awesome. Okay, another question. I think both of you can probably answer this, but how can a brand do something good to help others during this time without seeming self-serving or bragging of their deeds?
I would say wherever you can engage with a consumer element, so a consumer can match what you're doing or support what you're doing, then it gives an action for your travelers. So, or for your consumers, I think it's wonderful to share what you're doing. So if it's that you've shifted, a distillery is now making hand sanitizer, and if as a visitor, someone I'm watching, if I can contribute to the bottles, I can purchase 10 bottles for a local hospital, or there's some way for me to get involved in that, submit suggestions for names of copies that are being delivered, or, whatever that is. I think that doesn't come across as self-serving in any way. It's more like we're gonna do this, and we want to have you invited to join us along the way.
Yeah, I echo that same thing. I think a great example is a local brewery, Left Hand Brewing, that is delivering now. But from all those deliveries, they're taking the money they make on the beer from those, and they've created their own fund to give back to people in the food service industry that lost their job. And so if you lost your job, you just reach out to them, or your hours were reduced, and they will just give you gift cards that are good to local businesses. So, I mean, it's like Laura said, it's getting people involved in what you're trying to do. So by buying beer from them, they take the money they make on that and they give it back to the community.
Great. Okay, another question. So looking at this this person says, looking at this from a larger perspective, what should our social goals overall be to connect with travelers, inspire them to take a trip to our destination once the travel restrictions lift, or just share information about our destinations or share photos, or should it be something else?
Well, I think
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I think I was going to say the same thing. Go ahead.
I think right now that the goal is still inspiration and awareness. You just have to find that way of coming at it that makes sense for our current situation. And so, I mean, it's you don't have to be the source of coronavirus information, which I think in the beginning a lot of people did. That's out there. We're not the CDC. So people tune into you still because they want to visit you. They want to experience this. And I think your goal can still be that awareness and inspiring them to do it. You just have to be conscious of where they are and what, the state of mind right now.
Yeah, and I would just add on, I think as you're building out your plan, some posts are going to have different goals than others. Some you may want to be doing a survey, so your engagement there is going to be answers to those questions. I think other times it may be inspiration and just getting sort of the loves and the likes in that mix. And then other times you may ask questions or ask people to sign up for those private groups. So I think as you're making your plan and how you communicate with different stakeholder groups, there may be some different calls to action that you're striving for, but more broadly, I would say it is inspiration, and it is to be that place of inspiration for people as they're seeing it, because they have followed you in whatever platform that is, and so they've given you permission to share. And I don't think you are going to overdo it, and I think it's a conversation and thinking of it that way.
Yeah, and I will add that right now might not be the time to say, book your trip, reserve your room, order our guide, but that time is coming. And so you need to keep them engaged until it's okay to have that conversation, because when it's okay to have that conversation, everyone around the world and every brand is going to be pushing for share of mind. And you want to make sure that you kind of kept them engaged along the way so that it's easier to get them to pay attention when they start getting bombarded with messaging.
Okay, another question. How far out should we create a plan considering things are changing constantly? Should we do it weekly, and then should we revisit each week, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for your plan, I would be looking at doing a pretty specific plan against the different stakeholder groups for probably 2 to 4 weeks, and then be more general as you look out so you're looking 8 weeks out, and be a little more general, and with some if-then statements. If we are able to go back to restaurants, then this. If we are not, then this. And sort of look 2 to 4 weeks pretty specific about what you want to try to do, and then you're 8 weeks out. And then if you want to have something a little broader than that, that's even broader if-then statements, you could do that. But I think really starting specifics, and then I would revisit it I'd say every week, if not maybe Monday and Friday, to see, because it is changing rapidly and the situation does sort of evolve. And so whatever plans you have for that week, kind of go through them, see how it went, and what do you want to adjust the following week. And I think that makes things agile, but also plannable, so you can engage with people around you to either contribute stories or help share things or promote things together. So that gives some flexibility, but also some structure.
And I'll add my plan personally. I find it, because I'm focused really on kind of content and the social aspect of it. I like to think of it in my 3 phases. Right now we are in it. Everyone's in it. And we don't know how long that's going to happen. But my next phase is really, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We see that, yes, this is going to end. And so I call that kind of the it's okay to really start dreaming phase. And then it will go into that it's okay to actually start planning and booking, but also recognizing that when that happens, people are still going to be a little worried about social distancing and those things. So really thinking through those types of activities and trips and what you're going to market when they still have one foot back, a little bit cautious.
Awesome. Well, that was all the questions that we had. So we will be sharing these slides. And is there anything else you two want to add?
I would just say anybody who has additional questions or wants to get in touch with us can just contact you, Erin, if that's okay. It's your erin.lentz@nebraska.gov. And we are happy to answer any follow-up questions out of this or help navigate the best that we possibly can. And we'll send the link out.
Yeah, I echo that. I mean, you can just, if you have questions or you want to chat, just reach out to Erin. She'll put you in touch. I mean, with me personally, she can just put you in touch with me and you can call me. And if you have a question for your area or your business, reach out and we can do a quick little call and brainstorm some things that may help you get through this.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.